Hello, you are watching Rotary News Ukraine. Tatiana Svila is working in the studio. Today we are talking about one of the grandest Rotary projects, the fight against polio. Briefly about the main and the beginning of the news release. Stop Polio, National Health or Information War, roundtable in the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. Last victory, why has polio returned to Ukraine? Tasks for Ukrainian Rotary clubs, Stop Polio program in the regions. These and other aspects of the topic, more in a few seconds. Why get polio back to Ukraine? One of the main reasons, low level of immunization.
This year in Ukraine, polio vaccination was down to about 1 child in 10 in the age of 1 year. It is the lowest immunization in Europe today. Experts inform us that it is too small result to end disease, which leaves disabled. In worst version, it kills. And the consequences came fast. In the summer of 2015 in Zakarpattia, polio fell ill 2 children. Both the child haven't been vaccinated against polio. When in 2002 the European region, including Ukraine, have been certified as a territory free from wild polio, this status had to be maintained. And we can only maintain it with high level of vaccination coverage. Already since 2008, coverage started to going down, initially up to 90%. In the next 2009 year to 80%, and even further to 50%. And in the past year it amounted just 44%. This is two critical numbers against the background of this low coverage. Such troubles happen now just must happen. Because the vaccine viruses, when they are circulating in the collective of people with low immunity, a minimum the population of favorable people, such viruses can pass through the many passages of intentional favorable people. These viruses can change, they can acquire wild viruses properties. Such a situation occurred now, that we have had in Zakarpattia 2 cases of amended polio. This is the flash. It is considered the same as wild polio virus, and necessary measures are the same as in the wild polio virus.
Today in Ukraine remains ambiguous reaction to the vaccination against polio. This is primarily due to the numerous myths and speculations about immunization and vaccines. In December the 23rd, in Ukrainian Crisis Media Center, the open roundtable Stop Polio, National Health or Information War was held. Ina Serhii knows details.
We can and should do it. We can and must protect the health of our children. This close and polio now.
Journalists were invited to the roundtable Stop Polio, National Health or the Information War, by its organizers for attracting the discussion on resonance problems of polio immunization in Ukraine and get first-hand information. How could it happen that polio returned to Ukraine? Why do parents fear of children vaccination? Who benefits that Ukrainian children are not protected from the terrible disease? This is only the part of the questions, the answers to which the participants were looking for. Rotarians, doctors, parents, representatives of international public organizations. Today we will try to begin a frank, candid conversation with an emphasis on practical measures focusing on interest. Exactly on people's personal interest, on warning, salvation, assistance. So we start not from Ukrainian or international organizations' officials, not from official statements and appeals. I understand why the situation that parents refuse vaccination is today in Ukraine. I have 2 sons who are also not vaccinated from polio yet. You know, parents want a guarantee that everything will be okay, without bad outcomes, that the vaccine will be of high quality for real. The main task is the baby's health. What can convince you? The more information the person knows, the more aware the person is, though the more person is warned on something, and it is easier to congregate and make a decision.
До мене приходять батьки.
Parents like you come to me and ask me to do a vaccination or not. They come to me and ask whether I vaccinate my children. This is my first carte blanche because I say yes, I did. I can even show you a medical card of my children. My daughter is 3 years old, my son has 1.5 years and they are vaccinated. They are fully vaccinated by American European protocol, the protocol recommended by the WHO, and they have polio vaccination. The history of world fight against polio is the history of humanity's struggle for survival. 30 years ago, Rotary International had initiated the first Polio Plus program, which aims to permanently rid the world of a terrible disease. The whole world is in anticipation. The main thought is that polio will be the second disease, which was eliminated through vaccination. The first disease was smallpox. It was overcome after a global vaccination campaign in 1988. Now, the world has approached in order to erase poliomyelitis from the earth. There are only 2 endemic countries in the world where is a wild polio virus. It is Pakistan and Afghanistan. The whole world has unified efforts to combat this disease. The fact that we have the outbreak is a certain episode in this global struggle. The world is really very close to overcome polio. Rotary and partners began the campaign that the world is so close to victory the polio in the world. However, to achieve complete victory, the last steps are the most costly in terms of money aspect. So Rotary and partners, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, continue to raise funds. They are engaged in various fundraising promotions to finish this fight. In 30 years of Rotary fight against polio was spent plenty of effort. We don't want to miss them. Therefore, the victory in Ukraine is important not only for Ukraine. Defeating the polio outbreak in Ukraine is important for the whole world. And I'm ready to confirm that Rotary is in the same ranks with partners with Ukraine Ministry of Health in this fight. Polio became the extraordinary problem to Ukraine in the late 1950s. The use of the vaccine in Ukraine from 1959 has meant that since 1960s the incidence was isolated. And in 1996, when we held the National Immunization Days, twice 2 million children have received live vaccines. So the wild polio virus has stopped its dissemination. That status, which we had needed support. The status of Ukraine as polio-free country could be supported only through constant vaccination, through the coverage of children of a certain age to over 95%. Why hasn't this happened? Unfortunately, first were the campaigns against vaccination, then has begun shortages of vaccine supply. The coverage fell. It fell to a level when the strategy has took place. Igor Perehinets, Deputy Minister of Health, is convinced the next year the situation with the level of vaccination in Ukraine must be significantly improved. Considering that we will conduct procurement of vaccines and medicines through international organizations, UNICEF for example, then planning of the vaccine will be better. Owing to the polio campaign, we see growing confidence in vaccination as a whole. If at the beginning of the year, according to a UNICEF study, about 35–40% of parents were willing to vaccinate their children, then now it is about 70%. I want to appeal to all who hear me, to the venerable public regarding vaccination. Vaccination is the only way to save Ukraine children from this terrible disease. This is the absolute, which is not subject to any doubt. I said this, a man who had in his life a terrible tragedy, who survived the disease. I want to appeal to the venerable company. First, to express gratitude that Rotary Club made this meeting. It is, in my opinion, very powerful. I hope that reliable information about what happened will go from here. And the truth is that we done. we have created the polio epidemic in our country. In 2008, polio immunization rate was 80% of the needs of what was planned. In 2012, it was already 50%. Did the journalists have done it? Did we have a vaccine in stock? I'm sitting here and I have the impression that we are a little overworked in the who is guilty. Let's do something. Thanks, we have a vaccine. Please tell us your opinion, justify or tell us that you can argue now. Today, Rotary clubs and other lobby the vaccine of a certain firm. Where is the guarantee to people that this vaccine is the one that is required? That it is not the promoting of certain commercial interests? I want to say that Rotary, as a public charitable organization, doesn't make any profit from the vaccine maker. The well-known company Serhii Pasteur was chosen. This is a globally known company. We trust it as well as other partners. If anyone has doubts about the quality of vaccines, he or she may contact the appropriate experts and compare the indicators. It makes no sense to adopt a vaccine that the whole world uses. I want to thank the organizers for this meeting. For myself, I realized that we shouldn't wait the time, but we must do. By the results of the roundtable meeting, the participants prepared an appeal to journalists, authorities and the public. And they took the initiative. Create a public community in Ukraine, which would take care in achievement the appropriate level of vaccination among children for protection against infectious diseases.
This close and polio now.
Since 1985, when Rotarians has initiated the first program POLIO PLUS, the number of polio cases worldwide fell by 99%. Today, humanity is indeed in one step from absolutely depression of this terrible disease. We continue the release. Rotary's Tom's Dictionary next in the program.
Annual Programs Fund. Funding source of major humanitarian, educational and cultural programs of the Rotary Foundation. Areas of focus. The 6 main areas of which Rotary Foundation programs are directed: peace, conflict prevention and resolution, prevention and treatment of diseases, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, primary education and literacy, economic and community development.
What is polio epidemic? Ukrainians first felt in 50s years of the last century. About the beginning of the fight against polio in Ukraine will tell you Yana Tansura in the heading History of Rotary.
US festival became terrible tragedy for thousands families. Historical retrospective of polio nonsense in Ukraine in seconds. In 1957, the Soviet Union hosted the 6th World Festival of Youth and Students. 34,000 delegates from 130 countries came to the capitals of the Union republics. 4,000 of Ukrainian families' festival became tragic. National Deputy Valery Sushkevich was 3 years old in 1957. What is polio? He felt on his own health.
I fell then in 1957 when the Soviet Union united people from 131 countries to the huge festival of youth and students around the world to make a political action for itself. And tens of thousands of children across the Union became ill of this imported from all over the world infection. It was not epidemic, it was pandemic. Namely, almost polio wave passed across the globe. Union Communist leadership has made Kiev and Moscow the capitals of this festival, and therefore at the Kiev region nearly 20% of children per 100,000 population fell ill with polio. We lived in the Petrovsky village in Kiev region. There wasn't real opportunity to treat children, especially in villages. There was only one method – insulation, to place the children in isolator, in clinic, and don't allow anybody.
In the 50s of the last century, more than 19,000 cases of polio was registered in Ukraine. Only in 1958, more than 3,500 children were paralyzed due to illness. Only with the beginning of 1902, prevention and planned vaccination incidents began to decline. In 1996, with the active participation of Rotary, in Ukraine were conducted mass vaccination of more than 2 million children. And the disease has receded. Ukraine received the status polio-free country.
To overcome a new outbreak of polio in Ukraine and return status polio-free, immunization in the country should be 95% for international norms.
A few months ago, Ukraine Ministry of Health started the national immunization campaign. Today, 2 rounds of vaccination are already passed. For the second round results, more than 65% of children aged from 2 months to 6 years were vaccinated. The third round of vaccination is scheduled for next year, January.
Ми зараз якраз працюємо над цим, щоб все-таки третій раунд у нас
We are right now working on the successful passing of the third round for reaching that necessary level, which high bar international organizations specified us. They are monitoring us. Ukraine is the member of the international community who signed health rules and must comply these requirements. Requirements for a country in which the polio outbreak has been originated. It must be 95%? Yes, it must be 95% plus establishing an effective system of epidemiological surveillance for acute paralysis. These 2 indicators that require international organizations such as the WHO to be sure that they are conducted at the proper level in Ukraine. Will it be the last round of vaccination? First 3 rounds were planned. Here is the such question that if we reach sufficient children coverage and all children will be covered, this will be the final round. If we again reach that level, another round may take place.
As part of the Stop Polio program, Ukraine formulated specific tasks to Rotary clubs in the regions. They are different in scale and complexity, and the club has to decide what will be his contribution to the fight against polio.
Всі вони продумані.
All of them are thought out and will be equipped as printing materials and scripts, concepts, etc. There are more complicated, there were simple ones. So the club has the opportunity to choose what it can do. The roundtable must take place in the region necessarily. It's like the start of club activities in the region. To these roundtables are invited local media who must come, representatives of the Department of Health. Doctors have to come, representatives of educational have to come, from kindergarten, elementary school. This event must be information occasion, as we did in Kyiv, with the same scenario. Clubs will be issued with multimedia materials with scenario, and this event is a start. With this event, we can link the pink bus, for example, which will ride around the city. Link promoters' work. Link Rotarians' visits to school, kindergartens to speak on this topic. With this, you can link all the rest. That is the first thing from which we start work in the regions, the roundtable.
Ми починаємо в регіонах – це круглий стіл.
He set a goal to finally eradicate polio in the world by 2018. And at this time, to each dollar assembled to fight polio by Rotary, he will add 2 more. Bill Gates in the hidden Rotary portrait.
Bill Gates' full name is William Henry Gates III, the founder and chairman of Microsoft, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, honorific Rotarian. In 2014, Bill Gates became the richest man in the world in the 21st time. In 2007, the Gates Foundation donated Rotary International $100 million to fight polio. Later, the amount of donated money was increased to $200 million. In January of 2009, Bill Gates announced a second grant to support the program in the amount of $225 million. During the second grant-making, Bill Gates said, "We know that the eradication of a disease that killed and crippled children since the days of ancient Egypt is extremely challenging. We don't know exactly when the last child will be vaccinated, but we have enough vaccine to destroy disease. so countries have all the available tools to eliminate this problem. If we all have enough fortitude to bring this job to the end, we will end the polio. And today, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation adds $2 to each dollar collected by Rotary to fight polio.
Mail us news about your club to rotary@college.tv and we'll cover them in the nearest news release. Now we continue. Serhii Zavadskyi in the hearing Viewpoint, immediately after the ads.
Rotarian, official Ukrainian magazine of District 22 Study. Rotary function in Ukraine and in all corners of the globe. Discover the world of Rotary. Multimedia Publishing, by the link under the video.
The new heading in our program, Viewpoint, summarizes this release. Serhii Zavadskyi, chairman of the Rotary National Committee POLIO PLUS, and his viewpoint on one of the largest projects of Ukrainian Rotarians, Stop Polio Ukraine, next in the program.
What situation today about the vaccination against polio has been happened in Ukraine? 2 rounds were held, their results are positive but not sufficient to restore Ukraine's status as a polio-free country. Another day we get a message from the representative of the global initiative of fight against polio that Ukraine was deprived of the status polio-free country. Now Ukraine has to achieve this status again. What is necessary to achieve this status? We must prove vaccination rates to 95% and continue to hold it. For today, the maximum result was achieved in a second round. About 70% of children are covered by vaccination. But I emphasize again that it is not enough. Only 2 countries with endemic state left, Afghanistan and Pakistan. However, many countries have polio outbreaks like occurred in Ukraine now. And our task is to overcome these outbreaks as soon as possible. For 20 years, Ukraine has no cases of poliomyelitis. And the problem is not only about people who are little forgotten about the polio. The problem is that doctors are a bit forgotten about this indicious dangerous disease, from which people suffer paralysis and even die. There is only protection from polio, vaccination. The main task is organize roundtables, organize visits to schools, kindergartens, spread the word among parents in those cities where clubs conduct their activities. Extend exactly the information they need to know for a decision on vaccination of their children. In fact, it's sad, but it is time to the media and parents turn on the mind instead emotional reaction. One and the same vaccine is used for 50 years. Global struggle is went to 30 years. The illness decreased to 99%. What questions we have to the vaccine or to the procedure? It's checked around the world. But nevertheless, there are people, maybe very powerful people in Ukraine, who probably is beneficial to children which are not vaccinated, to children without protection. We must stop this information war and target our media and our parents for conscious evaluation of what is happening. And take a conscious decision that we have to protect children from the terrible disease. And tell us, please, about the measures that you plan in the near future, in the frameworks of the Stop Polio. It will be above all roundtables in the regions. We plan to start this process from the Western Union, where cases were registered, although in other cities. Rotarians will be involved in conducting classes with students' parents. Because in the third round will be vaccinated children to 10 years, not just to 6. And meeting with parents. This is our main concern, and it is that we will do in January. Perhaps in the future, if necessary, to complete victory over polio in Ukraine and worldwide. Thank you. I wish you and us the winning of the disease and success in this big, important case which you do. Thank you very much.
At this, our release ends. With the best wishes of peace and goodness, we say goodbye to you until next year. The next program will be released in a week, at the first day of the new year. Wish you happy holidays and a lot of conviviality. See you next year.